Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Dailies on Echo Television, where we keep you updated some of the happenings and events that have been happening in the country. And we have the stories on the front page of most of our papers. So please do well to follow us as we go through these papers, and then drop your comment, your views, as they are always welcome on the show. I am Sela Elisha. I'm doing this program together with Rachel. Good morning.
Good morning, Sele.
All right, we have quite a number of stories we would love to look at. So we'd love to start with New Telegraph newspaper.
The first story is from Cardoso, CBN aligning with global standards, enhancing transparency. Says 5.5 GDP growth rate achievable, says NESG. You can start with the details on the front page. Federal government spends 9 billion naira on equipment vandalized by terrorists. This is on power, and we know how there's a lot of vandalism going on in the power towers. That is a complaint from TCN. You can find details on page 8. Tinubu vows to enhance welfare of military personnel. Soludo politicizing insecurity in Anambra, a statement from Okonkwo. U.S. judge temporarily blocks Trump's order to change birthright citizenship. How we rescued kidnapped AIG's wife in Ikorodu Creek. This is a report from police. You can find details of this story on page 4. The big story on New Telegraph, landlords-tenants dispute highest reported cases, police lawyers are saying. As homelessness looms over soaring rent, medics are saying high rent leading to mental health crises among struggling tenants. I think this is a time, so I know it's business and all of that, but I think this is a time for every Nigerian to be considerate. And I know it's business. I'm not saying anybody should live rent-free. But there's been an outrageous increase in rent for the past years. And I think there are certain details that should go into your tenant staying in a particular house and all of that. Because you see, your tenant is not only dealing with house rent, they're dealing with health, food, and other basic things that they need as well. Am I saying landlords should not increase their
house rents?
No, I'm not saying so. But I've seen where landlords went very high, increasing as high as 100,000 to the rent, or even doubling it all of a sudden, and tenants are in a position where they do not know where to go from or how to do. And it's not like people are even living above their means. No, you need that 2-bedroom apartment, you need that 3-bedroom apartment, most especially if you're a family person. We won't say that there are no people out there living above their means, but they are few compared to those who are living according to their means and are still finding it difficult to meet up with bills and all of that. And for the landlords who are going outrageous in their increase, I don't think it's fair. At the same time, there is no harm in living below your means. It's okay to live according to your means, but it's also okay to live below your means. There's a need for that adjustment. Nobody should live rent-free. Of course not. The person that built that house is trying to find an income source. So we can't sit down and say landlords should not increase their bill. But I am saying be considerate in the percentage you add. Excuse me. Let your tenants know before time. Sit and talk. You know what? Ask your tenants. Just be kind. I know business is different and people might say, well, you don't have a house. You don't. No. I know what I am saying. It might not be pleasant to some people and all of that. I know exactly what I'm saying, because you know what? If this tenant, for example, have been consistent and all of a sudden, I'm not talking about those tenants that I know have been misbehaving for long. What is your relationship with your tenant and all of that? And as a landlord, are you fair with your increase? Or are you just outrageous? Or are you trying to send your tenants away because you want to get new tenants? So you just put an outrageous amount from your tenants paying 200. You tell them, oh, your next distance is 300 because you want them out and you want new people to come in and pay that 300. Are you being inconsiderate? And perhaps there should be more, right, put into tenants and landlords leasing, renting, and all of that. Why am I saying so is this: what was your income when you moved into the house. Okay, I think there should be a step forward. We should go a step further in things like that. I think the lawyers will understand better what I'm trying to say, because this is the police and the lawyers saying they won't understand better what I am saying is that the income of your tenant and what you're increasing, were you aware before they came in and where they are now, and the percentage you are putting in and all of that. These are things that I know if a lawyer is listening to understand the angle I'm going for in regarding making housing affordable and making sure that you're not just trying to frustrate your tenant to go out in a bid of you trying to get a new tenant for your own self. Because, well, if this person will not pay 300, I know somebody who is out there desperate, willing to pay that 300 because in as much as it's business for you, I think it's unfair. So there's a way around all of these things, and it is really sad seeing a lot of mental health increasing because yes, we need a roof over our head. Housing is not a luxury, it is a basic need and necessity, and therefore we can't say we shouldn't be empathic when it comes to dealing with things like that. Be you a landlord, of course you need to earn. At the same time, you also need to be in a position where you want to help in this, because everybody is feeling the blow. I don't have a house that I'm renting out there, and I might not understand the ins and outs of what it means to rent, the profit and all of that, but I think I know where I'm coming from, and somebody out there understands what I'm trying to say concerning this.
You know, I really understand totally the angle you're coming from, especially I think starting from last year or last 2 years was when we saw this increment, especially concerning the prices of beauty materials. Because I mean the goods have actually increased, so definitely imagine then when you build a house, a bag of cement maybe it was just 1,000 naira, so definitely you can compare with somebody who actually bought a bag of cement at 7,000, 9,000, pending even 10,000. You know, and we remember when even the House of Reps actually called in to actually have alliance with all of these cement companies, the likes of Dangote, BUA and the rest. Now, just like you rightly say, the fact that if you want to increase the rent, I mean, it should be like a notification to your rent, to those who are your tenants, the fact that, okay, I am intending to increase, maybe starting from the second half of the year. So this will give your tenant the option of either moving out because he or she cannot afford, or the fact that, okay, let me prepare my mind ahead of that. Now we have landlords that don't do anything of that sort. You just get a notice, I'll be increasing my rent starting from next month, and you wonder, I mean, this is not how to do business. Secondly, another problem I think is the fact that most of these landlords, or some rather, do not even provide the basic things that are needed. You cannot tell me to pay 300,000, for example, for house rent, and then I barely see water. Since I move into your house, you told me that it covers water. I have not seen a running tap. I have to look for a way to provide water. How about light? Are we having consistent light? We have certain estates that have, okay, you have, there is a running generator in case. But then, what if all of these things are not being, you know, I clearly remember, even though I was a student then, when I was moving, these were some of the conversation you have with your landlord. The fact that, okay, your rent is either is a 1 room or a 2 room, and this is what you'll be paid. I will be providing this and this and this. If you do not provide, how do you expect me? Okay, let's go to the ghettos or the shanties where we see some of these landlords don't even provide where restrooms, and then you still want to increase your rent. So explain to the tenant, why are you increasing it when you do not make certain things? The last time you renovated your house, they can't even remember. There's a leaky roof. There's so many other things. So I really understand the plight of tenants, and I'm hoping that, just like you rightly state, that there should be an understanding between the tenants and the landlords, just like you said. If your tenant has been misbehaving, you have the right to say, please leave my house. But if you have not been misbehaving, please be considerate. Everybody's going through a tough time.
Still on New Telegraph, mother of OAU student, appeal court upholds Adedoyin's conviction. You can find details on page 28. No request for Anambra South senatorial by-election, yet INEC is saying. On Japa, only 6,000 medical consultants remaining in Nigeria. This is a report coming from MDCAN, and it is a serious one. If in the entire country we only have 6,000 medical consultants, then we know that we are in a lot of trouble. Transcorp Power posts 115% pre-tax profit to pay 37.5 billion naira full dividend. Tax reform bills enjoy 100% backing of OPS, says Man. Urges early National Assembly passage, loads Tinubu's for taking bold decision on tax reforms. Loads Tinubu for taking bold decision on tax reforms. We have a study that says adult children of divorced parents face stroke risks. You can find details on page 29 in that all news on New Telegraph.
All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper called Declares Lukurawa Terror Group. And then we have the Right of Linda Story organization. You can read that on the right. I really can get it clearly. Now, Tinubu government not about parties, says Wiki. It's about performance. More detail found on page 6. Jerry Hussaini died at 81. Minister orders reactivation of passport equipment in US. No Sharia court in Ekiti. You can find the stories on page 531 and on page 12. Appeal court upholds Adedoye's death sentence over murder in hotel. The big story where we have FAAC disperses local government January allocation to states. The writer here says direct transfer to 774 councils failed to take off due to lack of dedicated accounts with the CBN, where it's expected that they all have an account where their own allocation will be sent to. So you can read the detail of the story on the front page and continue on page 4. Transcorp Power revenue rises by 115%. Shareholders to get 37.5 billion naira dividends. Federal government won't compromise troops' welfare. You can find out more detail about that. Downside of the paper, Lagos Speaker GAC members meet President. Then we have skeleton of missing pastor found in Bayelsa. Skeleton of missing pastor found in Bayelsa. More detail found on page 28, and that is all on the Nation newspaper.
On New Nigerian, hotel buildings take over Crowther Memorial College premises in Lokoja. Old students cry out. Group films over rumored relocation of Cat Poly campus from Chikun to Igabi. You can find details on page 5. The big story on New Nigerian, war against crime. Police injects 10,000 constables into workforce. We will not negotiate with criminals, Katsina governor vows. Tom Polo has brought development to Niger Delta riverine communities, Mulade is saying. On food security, Governor Yusuf empowers 340 youth graduates of livestock horticulture institutions. You can find details on page 7. Opefa's appointment as NRC's managing director, beginning of better deal for Nigeria's rail transport sector, TCAN is saying. Agriculture is solution to Nigeria's challenges, Ubasani is saying, and Sele have been saying this countless times on the show. You can find details on page 10. Kebbi Indigenes commend President Tinubu for appointing Malami MD Sokoto Development Authority. When things fall apart, the end of Nigeria's failed ideology. You can find details on page 17, and that's all news on New Nigerian.
On the Voice of Liberty, 14.3 million Nigerians engage in drug abuse. NAFTA DG is saying. We hope something will be done to look into this, and then we have more awareness concerning substance abuse. Over 250 containers of illicit drugs nicotine identified across several Nigerian ports, still regarding substance abuse. 32 years after leaving office, IBB to launch autobiography. So it's very good that we have something for the coming generation to read. Federal government to roll out private forest initiative to boost environmental sustainability. This is coming from the Environment Minister and Abbas Lawan. As part of efforts to address the challenges facing forest conservation in Nigeria, the federal government under the Federal Ministry of Environment has disclosed plans to promote private forest ownership in Nigeria. And then as well, in Niger, unknown illness strikes Bida, 24 hospitalized. More details should be found in the paper. Agriculture is solution to Nigeria's challenges, coming from Governor Uba Sani. Why not is straight train over tax reform bill, coming from Senator Natasha. You can find more detail of what she said. Regarding 2027 Sheitima, Atiku, Ubi, Kwankwaso and others to discuss the way forward. More detail found in the paper, and that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On the Matrix newspaper, the first story, Nigeria's FX reserves declined by $832.62 million in 2 weeks. Finidi urges Iheanacho to dump Sevilla over poor treatment. Global trade war looms as Trump talks tough. The writer says, make your products in America or pay tariff. Trump threatens. Okonjo-Iweala warns double-digit global GDP losses looms if. CBN to launch new compliance department to strengthen financial sector. The big story on the Matrix, Tinubu reiterates commitment to welfare of armed forces. The writer under the story hails troops' dedication, courage, resilience to protect our freedom. Says defense complex, national monument every Nigerian will be proud of. Court declares Lakurawa sect terrorist group bans operations nationwide. Police rescue AIG Odumusu's wife after gunfight with kidnappers. 8 billion naira budget allocation for anti-vandalism efforts, steady power supply. A statement, or rather a report coming from Adelabu. You can find details on page 9. Telcom tariff hike, subscribers to meet NCC today. We have an entertainment story, Trevor Noah to host 2025 Grammy Awards for 5th consecutive year. And also a picture story with the caption, prioritizing welfare of armed forces, where we can see President Bola Tinubu and the Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa at the groundbreaking ceremony for the construction of the new Armed Forces Complex, Abuja. This happened on Thursday, and that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, General J.T. Hussaini dies at 82. One of the papers say 81. Nevertheless, you can find more detail in the paper. Regarding business, UBA to host knowledge series on new tax regime for SMEs. As well, we have on AFCON 2025 Chile to attend draw in Morocco. More detail found in the paper. Nigeria at turning point with renewed hope agenda, coming from Abbas. The writer following that story says economy worsened when we dump agriculture for oil. Federal government to ensure 65% arable land cultivated within 4 years, with detail of the story found in the paper. CBN upbeat on 4.17% GDP growth in 2025. Nigeria not in hyperinflation, coming from the FRC. Edu backs Telcom's tariff increase. You can find more detail in the paper. We have about 5.4 million children suffer malnutrition in the Northwest. You can find detail in the paper. And we have Idris Lom BPP for driving transparency in the public. Still on the paper, we have 116.184 billion naira student loan disbursed so far, coming from NELT Fund. You can find detail. The writer says gets 58.4 billion naira budget envelopes for 2025. And we have a speech story as well, I believe, still concerning the groundbreaking on how the forces can actually work, the armed forces. So you can do well to get the paper and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On Nigerian Tribune, Interior Minister orders deployment of passport printers in Atlanta, New York consulates. Ekiti government denies existence of Sharia court, says no Sharia court panel in state judicial structure. Kingmakers priest will decide when to start. Right, a statement is from Professor Abimbola concerning the Alafin. You can find details on page 28. The big story is Japan. Only 6,000 medical consultants remain in Nigeria. Just 1 or 2 produced annually. 1,700 consultants approaching 60-year retirement age. Timothy Adekoke appeal court affirms Adedoyin's death sentence. Transcorp Power posts 115% pre-tax profit to pay full dividends of 37.5 billion naira. 77% of Nigerian women use skin lightening products. A report from the federal government. You can find details on page 5. How police rescued ex-AIG's wife from abductors. Federal government directs WAEC NECO orders to inscribe name, date of birth, photograph on certificate. The writer says declares war on exam malpractices, says all exams in Nigeria will be 100% CBT by 2027 as JAMB registrar heads committee on CBT migration. Alleged 2.8 billion naira fraud, ex-aviation minister Sirika approved contract for son-in-law's firm. This is a statement from an EFCC witness. You can find details on page 12. And the picture on the paper from left, we can see Kogi State Governor Usman Ododo, Federal Capital Territory Minister Nyesom Wike, and former Governor of Kogi State Yahaya Bello during a visit to the minister in his Abuja residence yesterday. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
I mean, the step federal government is taking to stop people from doing change of age, I think all this declaration of age and the likes of it, because I believe that's what they are doing.
Yeah.
But I'm quite concerned about a big story about this consultants we are having. I know we discussed it, I think, 2 days back or 3 days back regarding the fact that already we saw what the CMDs are saying. They are concerned about the fact that, okay, we don't even have doctors. Now we're seeing that we are only left with about 6,000 medical consultants. And you remember when we were discussing, we said that most of the doctors we have now are mostly like general, those who just practice general medicine. We don't have people who are actually consultants. They are very few. So you can imagine if we're having about 1,700 approaching 60, Rachel, I believe this is from the 6,000 left.
Yes.
So when we remove 1,007 from the 6,000, we are left with barely 3,000 plus.
We are left with 4,000.
4,000, yes, exactly,
Yeah.
4,000 plus. So you could imagine what is going to happen to us. So that is to say that, for example, you have to now be having referral from, it's either if you're in Jude, you'll be referred to Lut or regarding where. And then let's not talk about how much transportation will cost, because we don't even have these consultants. I really, really believe that this call for an emergency, honestly, and I'm crossing my finger, hoping something will be done, because that's the only thing we can do right now to be hopeful.
Yes.
That or will not have where we say, okay, consultants should please stay back. They will increase their retirement age to 70. And we know that medicine, it revolves. You need to keep new things are coming in. We need fresh blood. So I hope that all that is needed to be done will be done concerning that.
Yes, because I mean, it is we've talked about that, and then it is quite a sensitive one. I wouldn't want a 70-year-old doctor operating on me or working with me, not because they're not good, but I mean, they should be tired and maybe doing a less vigorous job at that time, even if you choose to
Maybe
keep
lecturing
working,
or something.
Exactly, if you choose to keep being active, because I know there are people who are still strong at 60 and can go another 10, 20 years. It's fine. But we need more younger, experienced people out there. And then the younger, experienced ones are leaving, and that's the challenge. And then the number that we are left with is few. If we have 6,000 consultants that are supposed to even be a high number, then what about the specialists we have? What is the statistics on the specialists? Because this is also a question. If we have these few consultants and specialists are always scarce by nature, okay, how many do we have left, and where do we stand? Are we having more of them, or are they going? Because we are seeing that only 2 produced annually. So it means at the end of the day, after all those induction, it means that it's just 2, that are out there, real consultants that you can really rely on annually. And we are having them leaving the country, and they're just 6,000, 1,007 is about to retire. We are left with 4,300 and all of that. So the question still is, what is the government doing to make sure that we are not buried in this mess deeper? What is the way out? And I'm looking forward to the Minister of Labor doing something regarding the health sector workforce, because it is not good. So far, so good. What are our universities planning on doing? What is the government entirely planning to do concerning this JAPA? Because what can you and I do, Sally, than to talk about it and to tax the government on doing better? And maybe to play with our doctors not to go. But would that be fair to them if you are
Holding them
holding them
against their will and not
exactly, and all
providing
of
all
that.
that they
So
need.
it's a lot, but I know that there's a solution if only we as a country, the government of the day, is willing to work on it.
Well, I think I'm looking forward to seeing a bill being passed by our house to look into this matter. These are part of the things that should make up some of the bills and some of the
Yeah.
discussion they should be having. I hope that when they are done with this budget, they should start looking at main things that are affecting. Well, before we move further with the people review, please let's take a break so that we'll let you through the stories. And when we come back, we will continue with the people review. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zuma Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Thanks for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories as far as the papers are concerned today. We're seeing the federal government making promises to look into the welfare of troops, talking about the armed forces and other security agencies. And as well, we're seeing concern regarding the number of consultants we have as a result of the JAPA, especially in the medical sector or the health sector, when we have doctors leaving the shores of the country too. These and other stories are what we have been looking at, so please do well to drop your comment and your views. I still have Rachel with me. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You're welcome, Celia.
All right, we will continue the paper review with looking at the Punch newspaper. Opposition cautions against diversion of 4 billion naira household bailout. More detailed on page 2. Police post 10,000 constable, plan 30,000 annual recruitment. Forced retirement, Falana urges Tinubu to reinstate 20 generals and 18 others. More data found on page 12. Regarding refinery revamp, marketers eye rehabilitation of NNPCL and NNPCL 21 depots. Marketers eye rehabilitation of NNPCL 21 depots. The big stories regarding telecom tariff hike. Subscribers mean NCC today as Labour mobilized for showdown. Labour officials talk tough, insist telcos must be prevented from exploiting Nigerians, with detail found on page 18. Tinubu open Abuja barracks, promises better soldiers' welfare. We can see him taking some of the photo and cross-section during the Bola Ahmed Tinubu barracks. OAU student's mother, appeal court affirms Oshun Hotela's death sentence. How we rescued the ex-AIG's wife, kill abductors coming from the police. Oyebanji kick against Sharia court in Ekiti, wants opposition. With data found on page 12, and that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, Transcorp Power post 115% pre-tax profit to 305.9 billion naira. Judge temporarily blocks Trump's order to end birthright citizenship. Military's welfare are priority statement from President Tinubu. Telecom's tariff will be reviewed periodically. Edom is saying. The big story on the paper, inflation will fall, economy to grow by 4.1% this year. Assurance from the Central Bank of Nigeria at FX reforms attracted $6 billion capital inflows, list price stability investors' confidence as priorities. Oyedele defends federal government 15% inflation rate projection. NESG lists measures for economic stability in 2025. World Bank urges federal government to increase beneficiaries of social intervention. You can find details of the big story and it riders on page 2. Ex-FCT Minister General Jerry Hussaini dies at 82. On sports, cricket under-19 World Cup, Nigeria girls battle England tomorrow. All the best. You can find details on page 32. How poor research funding stifles national development. You can find details on page 4. The writer under the story, federal government to spend $30 million on science technology in 2025. Johns Hopkins University to spend $3.1 billion, Harvard University $1.2 billion, Oxford University $1.3 billion, TED Fund spent $12 million in 2024. Grants sometimes misused, no allocation for research universities, system designed to impoverish us. Only Lagos State has Research Council. We are committed to funding research and assurance from Minister. Adegoke mother, appeal court upholds Adedoyin's death sentence. Minister orders deployment of passport printers in U.S. consulate. Police rescue AIG Odumosu's wife, killed 2 kidnappers. You can find details on page 4. See the picture story showing at the groundbreaking for new armed forces complex, where we can see President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, heroes of school sports. How Nigeria can leverage tertiary institutions on tap talents. You can see the picture. Do well to read that on page 4 and 5. Juta led Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger to unveil common passport. You can find that on page 7. Concerning inflation, 30 million more Nigerians at risk of falling below poverty line in 2025, says report. Trump's tariff, new trade barriers unsettle world leaders and agency. Ondo government diffuses tension as cows allegedly destroy 265 million naira crops. Very sad. You can read that on page 28. Over 20 killed as bandits, Boko Haram faction clash. Inflation, debt burden may hinder Nigeria's economy recovery, LCCI warns. Federal government disburses 116.18 billion naira student loan, approves 4 billion naira for vulnerable households. And regarding fuel tanker explosion, why federal government should mandate life insurance for victims, you can find that story on page 8, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, the big story, we are tackling grid collapse with building of 34 substations from the federal government, sees 8 billion naira in 2025 budget for protection of power infrastructure. Our electricity has reached 3-year high of 5,528 megawatts. At the top of the paper, NANS threatens nationwide protest over 50% telecom tariff hike. Eden says tariff will be reviewed periodically. There's no Sharia court panel in our judicial structure, and the assurance coming from the Ekiti government. Shetima Abdulsalami Atiku Obi to proffer solution to electoral malpractices. Others. Tinubu assures of his commitment to welfare of Nigerian Army, commissions newly built army barracks named after him. Mother of OAU student, appeal court upholds Adedoyin's death sentence. Nigerian youth very resourceful, admired globally, Oluremi Tinubu is saying. Governor Mutfang wants Jeremiah Hosseini. You can find details on page 6. Still on Daily Independent, federal government okays 4 billion naira conditional cash transfer for vulnerable households. Approves 2 billion naira interest-free loans for rural farmers. The last story on the paper, judge temporarily blocks Trump's plan to end birthright citizenship. As you can see, it's not only Nigerians that get to stand, I'm losing the word here, benefit from this. So it's a world thing, because it's not only Nigerians. I know we keep saying Nigerians are complaining on social media and talking, but for this judge to block you, you know, it's not only because of Nigerians, but it's a global thing. There are a lot of people that travel to the US precisely for citizenship by birth, and so they have to look at it deeply first. You can find details on page 6, and that's all the news on Daily Independent.
All right, let's look at the Daily Times newspaper. INEC announces date for Anambra Guba FCT Council polls, which we saw for FCT. It will be the 21st of February next year, so already plans are ongoing. The big story on the Daily Times is we have Tinubu's tax reform will support Nigeria's revenue drive investment, says Kalu. Ganduji profiles solution to end banditry nationwide. You can read that on page 9. Insecurity threatens Nigerians' food production, coming from the speaker. Food prices skyrocketed by 97% in 1 year. Southeast hardest hit, coming from MBS. And we have DMO to raise 450 billion naira through federal government bond insurance, detailed on page 12. Police accuse Stereo Bank of money laundering dealings. You can find details of that on page 4, and that's all on the Daily Times newspaper.
On first news, IBB to launch memo, host presidential library fundraising. Tinubu inaugurates Bola Ahmed Tinubu Barracks in Abuja. 8 billion naira allocation for power security, not electricity bill sensitization. Adelabu is correcting the misunderstanding from yesterday's papers. The big story on first news, Japa crisis. Nigeria left with just 6,000 medical consultants. Conduct by-elections for Rivers Assembly seats. Now Clark tells INEC. Ekiti government clarifies no Sharia court panel in state judicial system. Nel Fund reveals 108,484 students benefited from 116 billion naira education loans. Falana files defamation case against VDM adjourned to February 19. Tinubu approves 50 billion naira for potable water in Abuja's satellite towns. We have a picture story where we can see PDP National Working Committee delegation visits Governor Fubara, declares support for his leadership in Rivers State. And that's all the news on First News.
On this day newspaper, Atiku Opabio Wike salute this day newspaper on its 30th anniversary. FCT minister says this day a rise group among the best globally, and their managing director Anidiola Bello reiterates the media house. And then we have another story. Ex-FCT minister Jerry Hussaini dies at 81. Tinubu said enhancing welfare of military officers and men paramount to my government. The big story coming from Wale Edu, why Nigeria does not need IMF loans. You can read more right following that story, and that's all on this day newspaper.
On Punch Sport Extra, the big story, Ola Aina interview with a statement from him. It means a lot representing Nigeria and Africa, and it just shows that there's a lot of talent in Africa. My Nigerian heritage. You can read his story and interview on page 6. Finidi urges Iheanacho to quit Sevilla. Leverkusen open to 50 million euros Boniface sale. Adams near 5.5 million euros Sevilla switch. Olurun Leke positive after shock Almerich exit. You can find details on page 7. Bellingham matches Messi's UCL record. United prepare new Dogu offer, and we have Chelsea loan Vega to Juventus. CT completes £67 million Mammoth deal. You can find details on page 5. Amusan built for season opener in Jamaica. Cricket World Cup, junior female Yellow Greens upbeat ahead semis, which they'll be facing England. You can find details on page 2. That's all the news on Transport Extra.
All right, let's round it up with the Business Day newspaper. Nollywood bets on big screen. YouTube as streaming dollars slow. You can read more detail of that on the front page, and then beyond the outlook for 2025. Banks lower rate on FX deposit as supply rises. Still on the paper, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, ECOWAS exit scene hurting Nigerians' export. Transcorp Power poses 115% pre-tax profit to pay 37.5 billion naira full dividend. Minister of Interior direct NIS to deploy printers to passport office in the US. And that's all on Business Day newspaper as far as well how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this with me. And thank you to our viewers and every other person who made this program a success. Do have a lovely weekend ahead. Bye for now.